Should you build your own hoop house or polytunnel like this one, or should you buy a polytunnel like this one? Now, seeing as I own them both, in today's video I'm going to go through the pros of cons of either building your own or buying your own. Now, before we go ahead, I'm going to tell you that both these tunnels, the purchased one and the built one, are both 36 foot long each, and the purchased one is 16 foot wide and the built one is 14 foot wide. So they're pretty much the same size, give or take a foot on the width. Let's start with my homemade hoop house. And we're going to start with all the pros of building your own. And pro number one is it's much cheaper, because a lot of the materials that you need you can either salvage or reclaim, reuse. Now, I did purchase the timber for this build, but we did reclaim a lot of old scaffolding poles, which gave us the main structure. We also had to purchase the blue poly pipe that goes over the top. So there was stuff that we had to purchase, but essentially you could salvage all of that. Pro number two, you get to design the tunnel exactly how you want it. Now, I wanted nice tall sides here so that I could grow tomatoes right up against this thing. The problem with some tunnels is they start to curve down here at about 3 or 4 feet. That was no good to me if I wanted to grow tomatoes here. So I designed this tunnel so that the curve was much higher, and I'm typically talking 6 feet off the top of the bed. So having these timber cross beams instead of steel allows me to tie off espalier cables for the grapes and other plants that I want to grow in here. So these wires, as you can see, are nice and tight, and they are supported from the timber framing at each end. Not only that, these cross beams, the grape is grown up and across these, so now we have a layer of grapes right across the tunnel. It's a fantastic way of utilizing the shape. Now, there are other ways of doing it, but that's a pro for this one. Pro number four, I was able to use a much more robust door, and I was able to lock it if I needed to keep people out of here. With purchased tunnels, they tend to be just slide doors that anybody can go in and out of, and I wanted to be able to stop people just walking in here. And pro number five, I was able to add large windows in the entire length of the tunnel, and these are just pull-out windows, and we can open and close this tunnel. The other bonus about building your own is because they are individual, you can just take out the odd window here and there, and you can control the temperature inside rather than having it all open or all closed. And having this ventilation is key with battling things like tomato blight. Pro number six, I built a room in the back of this tunnel, and this allowed me to shelve it out to be able to put seedlings on the shelves, and it's double skinned, so this will actually allow me to heat just this area in here rather than trying to heat the whole tunnel. So we have a little heater down here, and we can heat this area for those seeds like chilies and tomatoes that need a little bit more heat over the brassicas and things, which can germinate out in the cooler part of the tunnel. Number seven, it's really easy to build into the design so that you can attach full guttering systems, and this would be the same as you'd have on your house, so you really make the most of water. And as you can see here, it just feeds straight down into this IBC that we can then use this water in the tunnel. Now let's look at some of the cons of building a tunnel. This tunnel, it took me weeks and weeks to build. I had to cut out all the individual windows, lots of timber work. I had to cut cross beams. I had to cut the tops of scaffolding poles. Then I had to drill them. It was a huge monumental task. And when you're on your own, it is hard work, I'll be honest with you. But I've had this tunnel for 10 years now, and it's done me well. Being 10 years old is starting to show signs of its age. The timbers are all splitting along here, the netted is all rotted, and even some of these window frames are all rotted out as well, and I'll need to rebuild them. But as you can see, you know, it's completely rotten. So over the years, the plastic has loosened up as well. It'll flap about. It's a pain in the backside for filming in when it's windy out. And that's because of all of these timbers have all started to rot away, and the screws have pulled out, and they were the ones that were holding the tunnel. However, the tunnel still stays nice and strong, even though the plastic is now loose. When heavy snow loads land on the tunnel, because of these poly pipes, even though they're quite strong, and we have a support here which pulls down into these, it could potentially cause it to break. So I have to alleviate that by putting a support in on each beam in the middle. Because it's such a big tunnel, it'll hold a lot of weight in snow. I have to say, mind, I've never had an issue with it, because I always put in those supporting beams if anything is sort of forecast. Another con is the fact that I have no way of retensioning this plastic, because the rails themselves, if I had a little bit more foresight, I would have put a rail down the bottom where I could have stepped on and tightened it. But because of the way the frame is built for the guttering and everything else, the side walls and the roof are all isolated. But to get this tight here is quite hard work. These posts move, as you can see, so it's really difficult to put enough tension against them. Con number 6. You have no set of instructions when you're building this, only the design that you come up with in your head, and it's usually just drawn out on a bit of paper. The measurements, well, although you can measure it out, it invariably doesn't always fit together, and each of these windows are completely different sizes. But I think that's the beauty of building your own. So con number 7 is it's time consuming to pull out these windows individually right around. We have 2, 4, 6, 8 windows per side, so 16 windows. I have to walk right around the tunnel and pull them out individually. That's time consuming. However, it is really good in the fact that you can control, you can just take the odd 1 or 2 out earlier in the season just as things warm up. But through the summer, it is time consuming. Number 8, building this tunnel was really time consuming, and it cost me well over £1,000 10 years ago to build it, because the plastic is still expensive, and you may have to buy scaffolding poles now because they're not as easy to find. You know, companies know they can charge people for them, so you'd have to pay for those. Timber, it's not easy to find, and it's quadrupled in price. It's really expensive. So probably now this would probably cost about £2,000 to build a tunnel of this size, and you've still got all the added bonuses of having to spend your time figuring it out and building it, and it being a little bit more quirky. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the tunnel. I've had it for 10 years. It's done me really well. It could do with some new timbers now and replasticking, which will see me then for another 10 years. So a bit of work on it will see this tunnel through. But that's the cons and the pros of building a homemade hoop house or polytunnel. Let's go and have a look at a purchased one. Now, in comparison, purchased tunnels, well, they're much easier to build. They're modular, all the parts are already pre-cut for you. It's literally come, slot together, put the plastic on, and you're done. And they are much easier. A couple of people could put one of these together in a day, as long as the prep for the ground has already been done. They are that easy. And for this one, most of it, apart from the plastic, I pretty much put it together myself. Excuse the messing here at the moment, because like any good polytunnel, I'm using it for storing all my potatoes while the weather's still cold. We've got some gunner and things, and we've got a load of stuff sort of stored out of the rain on the sides. But as soon as the plants start coming in here, all of that will be out, and this tunnel will be for growing only. So they make excellent use of the tunnel through winter if you're not growing in it. Like I said, I grew in the other one this year only because I was planning on doing things around this tunnel. But I absolutely love this tunnel. It came from Northern Polytunnels, and before I purchased this tunnel, I did a lot of research. I already knew the features from my homemade tunnel that I wanted in a tunnel, and Northern Polytunnels had this tunnel that pretty much covered everything I was looking for. So I already knew all the features I wanted. Let's take a look at some of the pros for this tunnel. Well, first things first, it's very efficient in time when you're building it, and it's very convenient. Everything is all pre-cut and pre-processed for you. Pro number 2 is they come with an awesome set of instructions, and the great thing about that is that it's step by step, and you just literally follow the steps, like hammering in your foot pegs, laying it out, putting things together. It's just like a big Meccano set. Pro number 3, 2 people could erect this tunnel within a day as long as the ground was already prepped. Pro number 4, down here it has awesome ground anchors. They are screwed like corkscrews into the ground, and they have big huge plates on them that stops the wind from lifting the tunnel. Now, we recently had some major storms here of winds over 120 mile an hour, and it was absolutely crazy, and the tunnels held up really well to it, and that's all thanks to these solid ground anchors. Pro number 5, like the home built, this has cut-out windows the entire length, 2, 4, 6 on each side. Not as many as my home built, but they do have that cross ventilation. Like I said, really important for blight. Now, this tunnel grew all of my tomatoes last year in there, and I had no blight whatsoever. However, the garden here had blight, and the garden on the other side of my garden had blight, and they both had their tomatoes destroyed. But because of that cross ventilation and that airflow, we didn't have any issues with blight at all. Pro number 6 is additional staging could be purchased. Obviously the timber doesn't come with it, but these cross braces and legs do, and it's fantastic for being able to put on trays of seedlings. Now, I've overloaded this one this year and it's sunk a little bit into the ground, so I need to square it up again. But again, we'll just lift the timber off, alter the bolts and square it back up. It'll take half hour to sort all that out. But the great thing about it is the fact you can put your seedlings on your in trays and water them, or potted plants, things like that. It's a fantastic place to store things as well throughout the winter months. Number 7 is doors at both ends. So we have access at no matter what end of the tunnel. With it being 36 foot long, well, that can be tiresome if you're trying to bring something from the other end of the garden. You have to walk it all the way up here to bring it in. Now, I have done that. Now, this one has a door that will unzip and also has a Velcro panel in it, so we can take that out and you can provide ventilation from both ends as well. So not only do we have ventilation in the sides, we have it going from both ends too. It's fantastic for really bringing the heat out of the summer, or the humidity, and getting some airflow through. Pro number 8, as you can see, this skin is still really tight. But the great thing about this tunnel is we have this system here, which allows us to undo a couple of bolts and just push down on it to tighten this back up if we need to. So it has a skin retightening system built in as well. And if that would put a bit of slack in the bottom, we just loosen the bolts down there and push on the bar down there a little bit more to tighten that up afterwards. So you can really retighten the skin if it loosens up for any reason, if it stretches in the sun. Pro number 9, one of the best features for this tunnel is this blue wiggle wire, and it's literally just a squared off wire that you push within a channel, and it locks everything in nice and tight. And the great thing about this is it's really easy to attach the skin to a polytunnel over having to dig massive trenches and bury it everywhere. The skin for this tunnel is just trapped in channeling that is part of the structure. So you haven't got to dig huge channels right around and bury plastic, and that's a nightmare if you ever have to dig it back up and what have you. It's also much easier than a homemade version where you're having to staple that plastic to timber and then framing over it. So this makes life so much easier. And the best thing about it is, if I want to retighten this side, I just take this wiggle wire out, pull the plastic a bit more, put the wiggle wire back in. So it allows me to tighten the ends too. It's fantastic. It's not a permanent structure, but it holds the plastic in really well. And pro number 10 is the roll-up curtains on the side as well. It's really quick to roll them up, which means you're opening the whole tunnel in one go. Whereas on my homemade one, I've got to walk around it pulling out windows. But you would think that you don't have the same control over the homemade tunnel over this, because when you're pulling out individual windows, you can control, as we've already discussed. Well, if I roll the curtain up here, that would limit, my control. However, you can just bring it up certain sections, so you're only opening part of the window, so you still have that control. I find it really, really good, and it saves me huge amounts of time opening this tunnel up. Let's look at some of the cons. And the first con of this tunnel, well, you can't get away from it. It's the price. Over building your own, it's more expensive. However, for that, you get a modular design that's pre-built. It saves you time, and it's quality materials. It's stronger than my tunnel. You can put a lot of weight in this. The ends don't fold in a bit like my homemade tunnel, and it's really easy to connect, and the parts just all go together without any fuss. So although you're paying more, in the time saving and the quality, because this tunnel will outlast 10 years, where that one I've had for 10 years. Don't get me wrong, I'm still happy to death with the other tunnel, but this one, you get quality for the money you're paying. So con number 2 is it's not so easy to attach things to. I couldn't run a grapevine around here or just put wires here, which I could in the other tunnel. I would have to put additional posts in, and because I'm putting those additional posts in, then it sort of really defeats the object. But you are able to adapt these, like I have above us here. I've got timbers, and they literally just sat on them bars, because these crop bars are really strong and they will hold loads of weight. That's another benefit over this. I haven't got to come in here and support the center of this with snow. Granted, I'm going to knock the snow off. I'm not going to allow it to distress, but we've got these big cross diagonal braces holding and supporting that up and transferring the load down to the foot plates that are down in the ground. So it sheds that snow rather than bending. The other thing about it is the fact that steel, it can get hot, and we've having to put heat tape all over the place, and the heat tape just stops that plastic from sticking to the metal. I don't have any of those problems in that other tunnel, because everything that touches the plastic is either timber or plastic itself, so I don't have that problem. But again, there are solutions to it all, and the Northern Polytunnel team send that in the kit, so you've got plenty of heat tape to prevent that issue. Likewise, if I wanted to heat something in this tunnel, well, it's a huge space. I would really struggle to heat it, especially as it's so exposed. And if I wanted to build a room at the back like I did with my other one, well, I'd have to build an entire framework rather than just putting up a wall and putting extra polythene on it, because I don't have that option here. I'd literally have to build a room within the tunnel. And so even though I could do it, it's just a little bit more work for something like that. So there's 3 cons. And to be honest with you, that's pretty much all I could find about this tunnel, because Northern Tunnels absolutely nailed it when it came to building this tunnel or designing this tunnel. And I'd done so much research before on exactly what I wanted. It's worked exactly how I had planned, and the features that I have in my homemade tunnel that I spent a lot of time thinking about are in this tunnel as well, and it's prefabbed for me. So what would you do? Would you build or would you buy? Let me know in the comments below. And I suppose only you can decide that, but I guess it would be down to a number of things, whether or not your budget would stretch to buying one and saving your time, or whether or not you have the skill set that's required to build something like this. You may be, getting on into older years in the garden and not be able to be climbing up on ladders and things like that. Whereas the polytunnel here, you could get a couple of friends out to help you build it, or even pay someone for a day. But paying someone for weeks on end, well, you couldn't even do that, could you? But also it's about materials and whether you could get them now. Like I said, really, with the price of timbers and the fact you'd have to buy scaffold and you still would need to buy plastic, well, I guess that's pushing this homemade tunnel now, which is slightly smaller than the other, to probably a couple of £1,000. So, is there such a big difference in it? Either way, whichever way you decide, these tunnels are fantastic growing spaces, especially with our changing environments these days. What I will say to you, if you're ever looking to buy a tunnel, you'll never go far wrong with a Northern Polytunnel. They are fantastic, and it is why I purchased this one myself. This specific one, because I had all of the features that I put in my own tunnel. I specifically looked at this tunnel for those reasons, and although I'll tell you guys a little secret, I actually approached Northern Polytunnels, and they'll tell you themselves that I approached them to see whether or not they would give me the tunnel as part of a promotion, and the answer I had was, I'm really sorry, but we don't work with influencers, we've had bad experience. And I thought, okay, no problem, and I bought the tunnel anyway out of my own money. So for those people who think that I've been given a tunnel to make videos, you couldn't be further from the truth. I've purchased this tunnel, and with my own hard-earned money. But I tell you something now, it's money that's been well spent. But the links for Northern Polytunnels, if you do want to buy one, will be down in the description below, and I promise you they are fantastic quality. But so building your own tunnel too. If you wanted to build a tunnel, just be prepared to have a lot of work, and maybe some things not quite going the way you planned, and maybe the plastic loosening and flapping about, which does sort of change the value of the plastic. The only other thing I would suggest over the longevity of this tunnel, because like as we've seen now, the timbers are starting to rot 10 years in, which means I've now got to go and replace those, and I'll have to replace the plastic to do that. So this tunnel is going to need new plastic, new timbers and everything else. Whereas steel doesn't really rot. Yes, it can rust, but it's in a dry environment, so it's not going to rot. And I see that tunnel way outlasting any homemade tunnel. I know this has been a long video, but if you enjoyed this video or you found value in it, then please leave me a thumbs up on your way out. And if you want to see how I built that Northern Polytunnels, I have a build video and you can watch that right here. I'm Tony O'Neill, this is Simplified Gardening, where I show you how to garden in a simpler way. Remember folks, you reap what you sow, and I'll see you in the next one.